Hi souls, welcome to my channel where hobby is gonna die. So last week was wrapping up the movies for February. This week is going to be wrapping up the books that I read for February. And I have them organized based on Goosebumps versus all the other books that I read in the month. I read 13 books. Again, like I said last month, the reason why I'm reading so many in a month, because that's not normal for me, is because of the Goosebump bunny read. Because we are reading so many books in a month. I'm going to separate this out to where the first section is going to be all the Goosebumps, and then the second section will be all the rest of the books for anyone who's not interested in hearing all the Goosebumps. So less chaotic than last month's reading wrap up. I also have them organized based on star rating. I didn't have any 5 stars this month. I had some really close calls, but the only ones that I got is 4.5 down to 1 star. There's one book that got to 1 star. I'm feeling a bit better, so hopefully I'm not going to cough my head off through all this, but I'm like right there on the edge to where if I talk too much or I'm too excited and stuff, I'll start coughing. So fingers crossed I don't go through all that. But let's go ahead and get started. So as I said, we're going to go through the Goosebumps, and we're going to go through 4.5 stars. And the first 4.5 star I have for you is Night of the Living Dummy, Slappy, the first of, I think, 4. I think there's 4 books in the Living Dummy series. The first book is about twins who are very competitive, which got really annoying to me, to be truthfully honest, but I also understand that siblings can be competitive. I'm a sibling to a younger brother. I also grew up with twins, cousins, who are highly competitive, probably more competitive than anyone else I've ever seen, so maybe twins are just like that. But it got a little annoying to read all of the competitiveness and fighting and stuff. So one of them finds Slappy and starts learning how to be a ventriloquist. The other sister got jealous of the fact that she's getting so much attention, so she decides that she also wants to be a ventriloquist. So her parents find her own dummy, and then they compete, and then, you know, all hell breaks loose. So that's what this one is about. Like I said, this got 4.5 stars. I liked it overall, which was good. This was a breath of fresh air after having so many duds last month. The writing was good for a middle grade book. The formula that I was complaining about last month, about, you know, you have a boy and a girl, or a girl and a girl, and then you have your typical bullies that are fighting with them at the same time they're dealing with a paranormal thing, and you just slap a different name and a different paranormal thing and call it Goosebumps. This actually kind of steered away from that a little bit. I mean, you still have 2 main characters, they're still dealing with a paranormal thing, but there actually weren't bullies in this one, surprisingly. So kind of veered away from that a little bit. I liked Slappy both because the kids were a little annoying, so I kind of needed them to be knocked down a peg and also learn to work together. But also, I love to hate him because he was also extremely annoying, and so glad that the kids came together finally and figured out a way to deal with him. So, you know, just overall, I really liked it. I think the reason why I didn't give it 5 stars is because I have to like characters, main characters, for me to consider it a perfection. If I'm rolling my eyes throughout the entire thing because of the characters, then that's going to be a point knocked off. You know, the story was fine and everything else. It was just not a perfect 5-star worthy book. So the next one that got 4.5 stars from the Goosebumps is The Girl Who Cried Monster. If you know the infamous, is that a Grimm fairy tale or just a folk tale? I have my Grimm fairy tales and my Aesop. I think it was an Aesop fable. Now I can't remember. It was one of the 2. Someone can comment down below if you know. But you should know the infamous Boy Who Cried Wolf, where this person sits there and does practical jokes crying about, you know, this one cried about monsters, the boy cried about wolves, and laugh at everyone falling for it, and then when it actually happens, they don't have anyone to help them. So this is basically what that story is. The reason why I got 4.5 stars is the ending. The ending shocked me. I was not expecting it. During these kind of books, I always think, okay, because you know The reason why I'm talking about the ending and the twists and everything, because you know, if you've read a Goosebumps or any kind of horror or mystery or anything, there's always going to be a twist, and it's always going to hit you at the end. And I sit there and try to figure out what the twist is before I get to it. I had all these wild theories in my head. It's like, okay, what is R.L. Stine going to do for the twist in this one? And it's like, okay, it could be this, it could be this, it could be this. It was none of them. I was not expecting the twist. I don't think anyone could expect the twist at all. Because of that ending, I was like, okay, this went from 3 to 4 stars to 4.5. It does get repetitive and it does get boring after a bit. And then things start, you know, ramping up and everything. And then I got like at the edge of my seat, like, okay, page turning. I think I finished that book in a day. But you can literally finish these books in a day because they're so small. But sometimes I just pace myself because I'm reading other things along with the Goosebumps. And we have our discussions at the end of the week. This one I did not pace. This one, after a while, I was getting, you know, okay, what's the twist? What is this? The reason why it got 4.5 instead of 5 stars is because it got a little repetitive for me. I mean, like the infamous fable or a fairy tale, whichever one it is, that also gets repetitive because the boy cries wolf several times before the ending where a wolf actually shows up. Repeating it a couple of times, sure, but after, you know, the 5th time, just like, okay, get on with the ending. So that was all the 4.5. The 4 stars, I have 2 and 4 stars, is Return of the Mummy, which I read, I don't remember the title now. I'll flash it up here. I read the first one of the Mummies at the end of January, and then Return of the Mummy, I started at the end of January and I finished in February, which is the reason why it's in February.
Okay, I fast forward through all of this because I thought I knew what I was talking about with Return of the Mummy, but all I was doing was just spitting out random things, misremembering. I should really address my notes before I start a video, to be truthfully honest. I need to start doing that. But anyways, here we go.
Did I like the first one? I think I liked the first one more. Now, okay, I think it's in my notes. I'm gonna look up real quick because now I can't remember. No, I was wrong. I'm sorry. The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, the first one, I gave it 2 stars. And it's because Gabe, the main kid, was insufferable. His cousin was also insufferable, but I liked the fact that she kind of knocked him down a peg. I also said that I was a little too generous with the 2 stars. Okay, now fast forward to Return of the Mummy. I gave it 4 stars, and that is because I said, don't read the first one. If you don't read the first one, because it kind of recaps the first one and the second one. But if you completely retcon the first one, the second one is great. There we go. That's what I meant to say. So the second one, the kids weren't actually insufferable. They were actually, I mean, there was a little bit of competitiveness, you know, but kids will be kids. There's always going to be some healthy or not so healthy competitiveness, if I can say the word. So there was a little bit, but not to an annoying level because they were dealing with other things that were happening. I really liked the story much more than the first one. If you're interested in reading about Egypt and curses and mummies and all that kind of stuff, I found it a lot more fascinating than the first one too, for that. And then the other 4-star is Night of the Living Dummy 2. Again with Slappy. It's going to be Slappy, I think, through all 4 of them. So I gave this one 4 stars because it was basically the same story in a way. You have 2 kids that are competing over one another. The entire family chooses like Thursdays, I think, Thursdays, for sharing, where each person in the family shares something that they are proud of, that they want to brag about, a talent or whatever it is, to the rest of the family. Like the main character, if you're not someone who feels like they are talented compared to their other family members, their siblings and stuff, you know, it's kind of anxiety inducing, but you're forced to do it anyways. Her sister is very talented with art. Her younger brother, everyone just likes him, even though he's a prankster and jokester and does crazy things. So she already was trying to do ventriloquist, she's just not really talented with it, and dummy that she has is very old. Literally, the head keeps falling off. But finally, her dad finds a new dummy at the antique shop, which is, you guessed it. So she starts putting more effort into trying to be a ventriloquist in order to be as talented as her sister. So that's what all that is about. And of course, all hell breaks loose because the dummy is Slappy. The family was dysfunctional. It was so annoying to read through the family and everything else until the end. The end is what gave it 4 stars. I really liked how it all wrapped up. I really liked how it was solved. The paranormal issue was solved. I'm glad that I actually liked both of the books in the series. And there's 4 of them, so maybe I will like all 4. Who knows? Another thing that was different with this is it wasn't the same family, which actually made the sequel better. Because who would be dumb enough to deal with Slappy again after dealing with them the first time? So 3 stars is Let's Get Invisible. So the concept was fascinating, but again, I was suffering through the repetitiveness of it. So in this one, the kids discover a magical mirror upstairs in the attic and play with it. And every single time that they did, something happens that spooks them. Like to the point of like, oh God, you know, not at a slight jump, but something really spooks them. And yet they continue to play with it repeatedly. So I was just like, I mean, I guess kids will be kids and some people just don't learn a lesson, but reading that rinse and repeat over and over and over again was so annoying. Which is why I gave it 3 stars. I mean, the ending was fascinating. The magical mirror, everything to do with that. I'm not going to say anything about it, but that was fascinating. All of these books that I've talked about has broken the mold for the formula that I was complaining about last month. The last of the Goosebumps that I read was Welcome to Camp Nightmare, and I gave it 1 star, which was sad because I was actually into the book. I was into what was going on. I was, again, trying to figure out what the twist is. Something's taking out the kids in this camp, you know? So I was just sitting there trying to figure it out, and then the twist happens, the ending happens, and I deadpan. I dropped my Kindle and just like, really? And immediately gave it 1 star. I think I was sitting at like a 3 or 4 star. And I was like, depending on the ending, this might settle on a 4 star or might skyrocket up to a 4.5. So it was right there. And then the ending hit and it was like, nope. 1 star. Cannot believe I wasted my time reading this. I would have DNF'd it if I knew about the ending. And that is all the Goosebumps. So the rest of the books that I read, most of them were horror books because that is literally what I read most of the time when I'm not reading anything else. One was a romance, one was a crime thriller, and there is actually, of course it is horror, but there is actually a graphic novel in this one too. 4.5 stars. I got quite a few books in that one. And the first one we'll talk about is Osgood as She Gets, which punny title. Osgood is the name of the main character. This is by Cooper S. Beckett. So this is about a paranormal investigator who is queer, neurodivergent, chronic pain representative, and also deals with vices galore. She self-destructs a lot throughout this book. This is the 3rd book, by the way, in a series. There is going to be more. I have not read the first 2 yet. This is a book that I was asked to read and review because it came out the 29th of February. I said yes. I asked if it was a standalone or should I read the first 2 books. He said it is a standalone. It can be read as a standalone. I agree with that because he does kind of give you enough context as to what happened in the first 2 books. But I still feel like I should have read the first 2, so my opinion, though it can be read as a standalone, my opinion is read the first 2 books because being in the moment of what was happening with Osgood and everything else, I feel like would impact you a lot more than learning about it secondhand. So, Osgood is a paranormal investigator. Like I said, self-destructs a lot, representative of a lot of things. She is an absolute mess, but I love her. She's charming, even though she's a mess. It's a horror adjacent. I mean, there's some horrific things that happen in this, but let's call it a horror. So they're investigating the graveyard game, which is something that got really popular on social media in the book, and some crazy things were happening around it. It's plot driven towards the back half, and it's character driven through the front half. The characters are real. The characters deal with a lot of things, especially Osgood. So you get to know them and their story and all the things that they're dealing with before things are really happening with this paranormal investigation. We should really focus on that, and then they zero in on it and try to solve it towards the end. I really loved this book, and I'm going to be reading the first two so I can figure out how Osgood came to be this way, because I'm invested in the characters, not just the paranormal. I really like paranormal investigations and stuff. I watch them all the time, so when the author said this was a paranormal investigator and stuff, it's like, yep, count me in. There's a crazy cliffhanger. So, be wary of that. It got close to a 5-star, but the reason why I didn't give it 5 stars is because I wanted more plot in the beginning. You do get, obviously, because they got the investigation, you do get a little bit of the plot in the beginning. The intro in this was crazy. That really sucked me in before we start getting into the characters. It just felt like they weren't really doing a whole lot because they were dealing with themselves. And all of a sudden it just dropped in their lap. We really need to do something, and then it escalates to the ending of the investigation. But I really like it. I really like Osgood. I'm definitely going to continue to read this series. I don't know how many books he's planning on putting in this. Thankfully, I have the first 2, so I can read those and wait for the 4th one. But yeah, highly recommend if you like them. I will say there is images in the book, and there's very disturbing things. Check your trigger warning. It's also very adult. One of the images is very adult. Of course, it's not one that you want to see because it's also horror related. So you will be dealing with SA, you'll be dealing with unaliving, you'll be dealing with unaliving yourself. So if you don't want to deal with that, there's your warnings there. The next book I actually have a copy of is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. So this is a romantasy. I say dark romantasy because this is a witch and witch hunter, and it's in a world that's very gritty. You have witch hunters, so burning of the witches and all that kind of stuff. Very dark and gritty. This is a YA. It is marketed as a YA, but there is a spicy scene in this. There's one. It's literally just one spicy scene. I read smut, so take this with a grain of salt, but it's not really that descriptive. But the fact that there was a spicy scene in this shocked me. I guess I don't read a whole lot of YA romance books, but in my eyes, I didn't expect to see a spicy scene in a YA. Overall, I really like the story. The characters I learned to love. They can get a little annoying at times. I especially liked the side characters, which I will hopefully be seeing. This is a series. There's 3 books. I don't know if there's going to be more. I think it's just a trilogy. But I am going to be picking up the other ones to finish, or at least read up to the 3rd one. It's kind of a historical fiction, by the way. Archbishop, the church, witch trials, France based. So for the romance part of it is a arranged marriage, which I thought I wasn't going to like, but I went ahead and gave it a try. I actually liked it. Now, I don't know if this is like a favorite trope I'm going to reach for all the time, but it's good to know that there's some arranged marriages I'm going to like. So, the next book is Picture of Dorian Gray by Osgood Wilde. Finally, I have read a Gothic classic, and I liked it so much that I'm wanting to read more, which I had intended to read more, actually, but I will talk about that in the end as to why I didn't. If it wasn't for chapter 11, this would have been 5 stars. This was so close to 5 stars until chapter 11. So, with classics, you're going to get really long-winded passages and monologues and all that. Oscar Wilde is very flowery. Not to the point that annoyed me like Anne Rice. Anne Rice annoys me with her floweriness. This one, I was expecting it and wasn't too annoying. It flowed well for me. It didn't stay on the floweriness. It continued on with the plot. But chapter 11, it was 20 pages. I think it was 20 pages. I'm pretty sure it was 20 pages. Or 10. Either way, too many pages of basically wrapping up what Dorian focused on. You should know the story by now with Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray ends up becoming immortal because of the picture, because the picture ages instead of him. There's more to it than that. You have to read the book. But obviously, to kind of speed it up the years aging, you have to have like a little jump. And that's what chapter 11 was. But it could have been, honestly, it could have been done in like a couple of paragraphs in a page break. Not 10 to 20 pages. I can't remember how many pages chapter 11 is, but it was way too much just to say, this is what Dorian hyper-focused for these years. This is what Dorian hyper-focused for these years. So that's the reason why it didn't get 5 stars. It was so close. It really, really got me into wanting to read more classics. So I actually put on Instagram a reel saying, list me more classics, whether they're gothic or just classics. So I have a bunch of people suggesting things to me. A lot of people are suggesting, you know, romance related things to me. I don't know if I would be interested enough to read them. Maybe I'll give it a try. But if it's a straight romance, I might not like it. It needs to be adventure related or gothic horror related. There can be romance, obviously, because I do read romance, but there has to be like a grittiness, gothic setting, dark, an adventure or whatever to go along with the romance. It can't be a straight romance for me. So a lot of people are suggesting them because I said go ahead and suggest me anything. So maybe I will pick up an occasional one to see if I like it. I went off on a tangent and not talking about the books that I've read in February. Sorry about that. And the last book in my 4.5 stars is a graphic novel that I very recently finished. I got it off NetGalley. Image Comics approved me to read. And it's called Mercy, the Fair Lady, the Frost, and the Fiends by Mirka Andolfo. I probably said that wrong. It is a gothic Victorian horror, which kind of deals, I'm going to say eldritch monsters. I don't want to say more than that. You can read it in the graphic novel if you're interested in graphic novels. The art in this was amazing. Absolutely beautiful art. I was sitting there staring. Of course, it was unfortunately on my phone that I had to read it because it doesn't go on Kindle. But I zoomed in order to see the art. The coloring, the shading, the line work. I really, really love the art in this. My kind of style. Victorian era, gothic, crazy monsters. Let's go ahead and go through the trigger warnings. Child abuse, neglect, body horror, including children. They didn't discriminate. Dealing with crazy monsters, adult themes, just there's a lot to unpack there. So those are your trigger warnings. Overall, I really liked it. I was really sucked in there towards the end. I was literally flipping pages very, very quickly. And then the end happened and I was just like, what? It felt rushed. It felt like it needed another several panels in between to kind of pace out the ending. It just hits really fast to wrap up a bunch of things and kind of drop a bunch of things on you at the same time. I blinked and it was over and I was like, that was a lot to unpack in just a few panels. It felt whiplash and it wasn't satisfying ending to me. It's a shame. I hate it when that happens. Anyways, 3 more books. I know I've been rambling like crazy. So next is the 4 stars. And the first of those 4 stars is Nightmares from the Grey by Joey Powell. This is another book that I was asked to read and review. I actually really thoroughly enjoyed this book. This is like Stranger Things. Teens solving a paranormal mystery going on in their town. This is basically what this is. This is more horrific in my eyes than Stranger Things is. So if you are into that kind of thing, I would recommend you read this book. I really, really liked it. There was some sentence structure editing issues a little bit. This is his debut novel, by the way. It's a very solid debut novel, and I'm excited to see what else he writes. I think he's writing the second one of these, actually. I think this is going to be a series, which I'm actually here for. I want to pick it up if he actually does. I really think he's definitely going to go places with his books. I liked the fact that this is literally stolen artwork on the front. It's not like some crazy polished AI generated nonsense. Reminds me of old style comics. It kind of was slow going there in the beginning, but once it picked up, it really picked up. I feel like I should have put this up in a 4.4 stars. Now that I'm sitting here reflecting on it more, I'm sitting here like, what didn't I like about this book? So I feel like I may have kind of understarred this one. Speaking of solid debut novels, which I don't have a copy of, is Umbrate by A.D. Jones. So Umbrate is a crime thriller urban fantasy. It has dwarves, elves, humans, and a shadow people in a modern society. So the crime thriller part, it follows Detective Vanek. He races the clock and solves a mystery involving him. Very gruesome mystery. People get unalived. It kind of reminds me of Die Hard. Weird media references, only it's not the good guy who's hiding, it's the bad guy who's hiding. And it's a mall, not a office building skyscraper. But Vanek is a really likable character. He's got flaws, but everyone has flaws that they need to grow on, and he works on them along the way. This is a really good commentary on racism and prejudice. You'll be dealing with segregation. Well, desegregation was lifted very recently in this book, and the Umbrate are the ones that got segregated, and now they're being put back into society slowly. So dealing with that, and dealing with Vanek, dealing with that, along with a lot of other things that he is dealing with as a detective. I really liked the side characters in this too. I just liked all the characters. All the characters are very, very likable in this. Again, I'm thinking I probably should have gave this 4.5 stars. I'm really excited to see what else A.D. Jones does. So there is a lot of awkward sentence structure issues in this that I feel like needed a little bit more editing. And then the last book I have is It by Stephen King, which I've already talked about in my Stitch With Me video and several other videos actually. Gave it 3 stars. This was a 1 star until the ending, and then I sat there and reflected on it. The ending wrapped it up so nicely and impacted me so much. I was like, okay, now I understand. It doesn't deserve any more than that because this is still a really, really big book, and it didn't need to be this big. I understand why it was, because there's a lot of history through the kids and Derry, and the reason why Pennywise is even doing what they're doing. But I still feel like it needs to be edited down by half. I still think you could get a very impactful ending and get a really good idea as to the history between the kids and Derry and Pennywise and all of that in half of this. So that is my thoughts between that. I don't want to go further than that because you've probably already, if you've seen my other videos, you've already heard everything I had to say individually about the book. Stephen King is a good writer. I've actually picked up more of Stephen King's books in the book haul that I'm going to film later. I'm still interested in reading King. I feel like King is very rambly, but so am I, as you can see with this video. So there's nothing wrong with being rambly, but there is such a thing as being too rambly. So I kind of want to read some of his smaller books. A lot of people suggest that I read some of his smaller books if I feel like this is too much. So I'm going to do that. I'm sitting right in front of my Kings. There are a bunch of bigger books that I'm wanting to read too that are also going to be, yep. This one's actually bigger than it. 1,200, almost 300 pages. Jeez. Okay. Obviously I'm going to read those too at some point after I get a really, really long book. It is a really, really long book. After I get a really, really long break from this and read a bunch of smaller books. And that is all of them. I rambled a lot. I'm probably going to edit it down and hopefully everything makes sense. I have brain fog. I've literally been out all day. Anything else I wanted to say? Oh, even though I read 13 books in February, I did not read the ones I intended to read in February. I mentioned I wanted to do the Halloween celebration of reading gothic horror, which I did read 1, and romance books, which I did read 1. I read 2 of what I intended, but I also had intended to read Dracula. I like this edition, by the way. And then the other romance that I was going to read was, I am currently reading this one, so I have the dust cover off of this, is Night of the Witch by Sarah Rash and Beth Revis. And then I also wanted to read Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue, which is a dark romance. And then I started this, I think the end of January, and I didn't finish it either. The Vampire Lestat. I'm like halfway in it. Eventually, I'm going to read everything. That's all the updates. That is the wrap up for February. Next week will be a book haul, an impromptu book haul video for all the books that I'm going to be adding to my TBR shelves that are already overflowing. So really, they're just going to be sitting in stacks somewhere. So I will see you next Wednesday. Bye, souls. How creepy is the cover? Anyone scared of dolls and dummies? Let me know in the comments. I was getting so distraught, and distraught's not the right word. That's too big of a word. Disappointed. That's what I was looking for. I think, is this the one that does the family sharing? Or is that the second one? Hold on a second. I'm getting my living dummies mixed up. Let me start over. I'm getting all mixed up. This is what I get for reading 13 books. Anyways, so this book is about, I'm going to start completely over because I'm all over the place. It was a front, I woke up Alexa. My eyes are watering and everything else right now because I just got into a coughing fit. I was hopeful that I'd get over that, but I guess not. I'm not crying because I'm upset. I'm literally just crying because coughing fits make you do that sometimes. The Return of the Mummy, if I can say the word, gothic romance. I'm thinking about Serpent and Dove.